Imagine this: hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers armed to the teeth with the latest Western equipment, from American Max Pro armored vehicles designed to withstand mine blasts to British analytical missiles built to destroy tanks, suddenly lower their weapons, step out of their trenches with their hands raised and shout, "We don't want to die for Zelensky and his corrupt clique." This is not a scene from a Hollywood blockbuster or a fictional plot. According to these accounts, it is the harsh reality near Kupyansk, where an entire battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces allegedly surrendered en masse to Russian troops, exposing deep-rooted corruption, cynical lies, and what is described as the complete hopelessness of the Kyiv regime. Shock and panic grip Kyiv and Washington. Billions of dollars in aid appear to have vanished into thin air while Ukraine's army is said to be cracking, not only losing positions but losing the very will to fight. What exactly pushed these soldiers to take such a desperate step? Why are they openly accusing President Zelensky of betraying national interests? How could this capitulation trigger a chain reaction, collapsing the entire front from Kharkiv to Donbass? And why are Western sponsors now reportedly at a loss, watching their strategy unravel under the weight of a moral collapse? Stay with us, this is not just news. It is a deep expose that aims to radically change how you understand the current war and its alleged inevitable outcome. Welcome to the channel News Vector. I'm your host, Alexei Voronin, and today we will dissect what some experts are calling an epoch-defining event, one that could mark the beginning of the end for the Kyiv leadership and its Western backers. Let's dive straight into the epicenter of the drama, near Kupyansk, a strategic hub in the Kharkiv region, where every meter of land is key to controlling the entire Eastern Front, including supply routes and logistics. Here, in the mud of the trenches, under the constant whistle of shells, in exhausting heat or bitter cold, a battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, estimated at between 400 and 600 soldiers, including seasoned veterans and newly mobilized recruits, made a decision that stunned observers. Not in panic from total encirclement, not at gunpoint from blocking units, but consciously, collectively, after long discussions in shelters. They reportedly contacted Russian positions by radio, agreed on a safe corridor, and left their fortifications, abandoning what is described as massive amounts of equipment and weapons. Picture the scene in detail. Rows of soldiers in worn camouflage, backpacks on their shoulders, walking across no man's land under watchful sights, while their commanders, the same men who had ordered them to hold to the last bullet, walk ahead, waving improvised white flags made from scraps of cloth. This, the narrative claims, is not fiction. Drone footage, eyewitness accounts, and even recordings of radio negotiations are said to be circulating on social media, despite strict censorship in Kyiv and efforts to block their spread. Why Kupyansk? The city is not just a dot on the map, it is described as a gateway to Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, the heart of Donbass, home to key industrial and military facilities. Ukrainian command allegedly concentrated elite units here, several brigades equipped with Western hardware including heavy artillery and air defense systems, tasked with one mission at any cost, even at the cost of thousands of lives, to halt Russian advances and prevent a breakthrough. But instead of the heroic defense portrayed by Kyiv's propaganda, the account describes a total collapse. The battalion holding key heights and crossroads allegedly refused to fire, ceased hostilities, and ignored orders from above. An improvised meeting was held in a dugout. They voted by raising hands, discussed all risks, including possible reprisals against their families, chose negotiators, and even drafted a list of demands to the Russian side. It was an act of despair, but also of cold calculation. The soldiers reportedly believed that captivity meant survival, medical care, and a chance to return home after the war, while staying at the front meant certain death for чужие амбиции and corruption schemes. Now to what allegedly drove them to this radical step. Not just physical exhaustion from endless fighting, but boiling anger accumulated over years of lies and betrayal. In captivity, soldiers reportedly record videos widely distributed by the Russian side. "We are tired of being cannon fodder for Zelensky and his band of corrupt officials. They live it up in Kyiv, buy villas in Europe with our money, while sending us to die without ammunition, proper food, or even basic medical care." One surrendered soldier, a former mechanic from Lviv with 3 years at the front, claims, "We were forcibly mobilized, grabbed off the streets like dogs without court or investigation." They promised rotation after 3 months, but we've been here for 2 years, watching friends die from lack of ammo. Commanders sell Western weapons on the black market, steal our rations, and even combat bonuses. Another, a young man from Kyiv, adds, "We saw thousands die. For what? For Crimea, which we'll never get back? For Donbas, where locals hate us and wait for liberation? This is not our war, it's their geopolitical game where Ukraine is just a bargaining chip for NATO." These statements are presented not as isolated complaints, but as echoes from across the entire front line. According to claims of leaked internal surveys, despite censorship and threats of arrest, up to 80% of soldiers allegedly want peace at any cost, including territorial compromises, and 60% would surrender if guaranteed family safety and humane treatment. Corruption is described as a cancer eating the army from within. Western Leopard tanks rust without spare parts because officers allegedly sell them off as combat losses. HIMARS ammunition disappears into smuggling networks. Even Western humanitarian aid is said to end up in generals' pockets. Among soldiers, the slogan, "We won't die for Zelensky," is described as going viral in closed chats of the armed forces and National Guard. The captured equipment is portrayed as a separate chapter of humiliation for NATO's Arm Ukraine to Victory strategy. Russian forces allegedly seized equipment worth tens of millions of dollars, now to be studied and potentially used against its former owners. Among the trophies listed, 15 American Max Pro MRAPs, hundreds of British NLW missiles, German PZH-2000 self-propelled howitzers with thousands of shells, Polish RPG-7 launchers with modern warheads, American Stinger systems, thousands of NATO standard 5.56 millimeter ammunition crates, Harris encrypted communication systems, Puma reconnaissance drones with night vision. Estimated value $50 to $70 million, though the narrative argues the real damage is reputational. Kyiv's reaction? Allegedly chaos and denial. President Zelensky reportedly convened an emergency meeting accusing generals of treason. Official statements downplayed the event as a small group of deserters influenced by Russian propaganda. Yet according to the narrative, videos of hundreds of prisoners and captured equipment could not be concealed. Measures reportedly intensified, censorship, arrests for defeatism, blocking videos, deployment of security units, and increased propaganda. Western reactions are described as alarmed, with emergency consultations in Washington, Berlin, and London, and internal NATO assessments allegedly acknowledging a collapse of morale. The account frames this as a systemic crisis: mass desertions, forced mobilization, sabotage, collapsing morale, and irreversible decay. Russia, the narrative claims, exploits this through information warfare, videos, leaflets, and calls to surrender. Kupyansk is portrayed as a precedent. If one battalion surrendered and survived, others may follow. The conclusion drawn is stark. This event is framed as a symptom of terminal collapse, accelerating an outcome on Russian terms. The audience is invited to comment, discuss, like, subscribe, and follow the channel for further analysis.